Hey, you're listening to Let's Stay Together, a podcast about the series Fruits Basket by Natsuki Takaya. I'm Ellen.
And I'm Kayla.
And today we're discussing chapters 9 and 10. Yay! I'm excited. You sound really quietly excited. Thank you. So we're going to do our regular discussion, or I'm going to summarize the chapter. We're going to do our regular discussion, and then we're going to do our spoiler discussion, as we do every time. But first, I have a couple shout-outs. So this week we
might mix it up and do spoilers first.
Oh, yeah. It's Rock's fault everyone dies. So first we have some shout-outs. So this week we got some really nice asks on Tumblr, and that made my day. It made my week, really, actually. And I really appreciate it. And then we also so we record this on Sundays, and we just got an email from our website from a listener named Alice who confirmed that she was laughing at us talking about West Side Story. So there's at least 3 of us who enjoy West Side Story.
Crossover is 3.
Yep. Confirmed. I track all the listener stats and stuff for this podcast because I find it really interesting, and we've seen a lot of growth recently, so that's really nice to see. It's making me really happy, and I just want to say thanks for listening. It's a pleasure to create this podcast, and I'm really glad that other people are enjoying it too.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. My heart is full, so full. And I really enjoy responding to everyone's asks. But that being said, if you have a comment that you want to leave and you don't want me to talk about it or whatever, or reply publicly, let me know in the comment, and then I won't, because, I get it.
Otherwise, you're free game.
Yeah, basically. That's how the internet works. Also, the first 1 or 2 that I responded to, I didn't realize that you could reply privately, because, I don't... In my personal Tumblr, I just mostly lurk and like stuff. I don't really reply to people, so I was not aware. Anyway, it's fine. Everything's fine. But just let me know if you want to.
We're not big name Tumblr fans here.
No. Just keep it on. Well, maybe we will be. We're gonna have to be someday. The time is now to finally figure out how to use Tumblr. But yeah, if you want to keep it on the DL, I get it. Just let me know. Okay, let's start with chapter 9. So, the day of the Culture Festival is finally here. In case we kind of talked about the Culture Festival last time, but basically I looked it up because we were positing perhaps that the public can come and whatever, and yes, it is a situation where at schools in Japan, it is a mandatory attendance, and students have to produce things or do performances, and often volunteers perform, and the school is open so that potential students or alumni or just the public can come and see what the students have been doing. So that's kind of the purpose, and it's usually in the fall, in case anybody was wondering. I did Google it.
They're all wearing their lovely sweaters.
They are wearing their lovely sweaters. They're also wearing aprons, as we predicted last time. We open with a chapter with the onigiri stand in full swing. And some of Tohru and Kyo and Yuki's classmates are saying, this is great. We might make first place in the food division, which I think is interesting, because then it also implies that there's a competition going on at the school. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I didn't see that in my Googling of Culture Day, but maybe this school's hip and fun. So there's some kind of competition, and they're excited because they might do really well. Also, so they're there in their aprons selling lots and lots of onigiri. And Hana is also there dowsing? ? She's reading people's fortunes, I think. There's a girl, she's talking to a girl, and I thought it might be dowsing, so I Googled different types of fortune telling, and then I was it dawned on me that might be a TV antenna. Mm-hmm. I forgot what antenna looks like. Since this is from the 90s and it's 2019.
Yeah, I was thinking it was a water rod.
That's what I thought, for dowsing.
But yeah.
But for dowsing you need 2. So then I Googled different types of fortune telling, and there's so many different types, but none of them involved an antenna type device except for dowsing, where you have to hold 2 things, I think. But including a variety of things like reading tea leaves and throwing beans and burning stuff and looking at the ashes, and also some of them, and I highlighted this for you because you have a pet bird. Some of them also involve parrots. So
To confirm, are these living parrots, or
they're
is this like bits of the animal kind of thing?
no, it's living parrots. Let me tell you
Okay.
about parrot astrology as a side note, which is a type of astrology, and it involves using green parakeets that are trained to pick up cards. And then there's like a fortune teller that then looks at the cards and reads your fortune. So I think what you need to do is train your pet bird to be a fortune teller.
I don't think I trust it with my future.
Or anyone else's future.
Yeah. They kind of do that at zoos sometimes, where they have like a crow pick of the winning team or whatever.
Do they really?
Yeah, you ever seen that?
No, I've never seen that.
Yeah, they do it. I've seen them do it with squids, where they like have the squids and octopus, where they like, go into a house for the winning team. But I've also seen them do it with like crows picking a card.
I feel like I would trust a octopus with my fortune, but not a parrot. is that is that a
Or a
weird
crow.
thing to say? Or a crow?
Those are all mischievous animals. I don't think I trust any of those.
This is a long side note. I'm gonna stop. But I just thought. So I don't know if it's supposed to be like some kind of dowsing or something. I suspect my it's so Denpa is supposed to be electromagnetic waves, right? And television and radio use electromagnetic waves. So I was like, maybe she's using the antenna, or maybe it's all for spectacle. I don't know. But she's definitely doing something on the side, and it looks like fortune telling. She's also wearing like a costume with a hat, like a kind of a witchy looking hat. I just wanted to point that out, which is we're talking about one panel. It's like one part of one part
It's
of
not
the
even
page.
a real panel. It's like a
Yeah.
sub panel and a big panel.
Yeah. But I thought it was I never noticed it before, so I thought it was really funny.
Yeah, neither.
Oh, it's pretty good. There's a couple things in these chapters that I had never really thought about, and that was one of them that I just saw for the first time this time, and it was really great. Back in the regular action that's happening, there's a student that's complimenting Tohru on this adorable cat onigiri that she made. And she said she thought of making a rat too, but they're all like, ew, that'd be so gross. And Uo and Kyo are like chilling on the floor, not helping out as usual. And Uo yawns, and then Kyo wonders if eating the cat onigiri would make him a cannibal. Tohru says that the one who, she thanks the girl, but she's like, well, I think the one who's contributing the most to the onigiri sales is Yuki. And a flip of the page reveals that he's wearing the dress that the upperclassmen girls asked him to wear in the last chapter / our last episode where we discussed this. And there's a girl who's, I think, one of the upperclassmen who's like telling people off and telling them not to take photos because Yuki clearly doesn't like it. And the students in their class are commenting that he's cute, maybe too cute, and he's the one bringing in all the attention. So like they're kind of like the onigiri stand is doing well, but then they think it's because everyone's coming to see Yuki. And in Toru's narrations, he says Sohma-kun is wearing girls' clothes today, and it's caused quite the uproar. Everyone's coming by to see him, even teachers. And they, which I also thought was interesting. They've been able to. It's no. Well, we can talk about this later, but yeah, everyone is coming to take part in the spectacle, and they've been able to sell a lot of onigiri because of it. But Yuki's not enjoying it. And there's a girl who comes up who's bringing Yuki some flowers, kind of behind this narration. And at the end, Tohru and Yuki make eye contact, and he turns away immediately, kind of shamefully. And Tohru then, I think she thinks he's avoiding her, even at home. And she ends all this narration by saying out loud, I wonder if I upset him somehow. And Kyo is like, leave him alone. He's probably just humiliated to be dressed like a girl. He's really self-conscious about his pretty face. And Uo is like, really? But a lot of people are jealous of him. And Kyo is like, he's finally getting what he deserves. And then Tohru is like, Kyo, like, come on, stop being a dick. Anyway. Tohru is like, what should I do? When I saw him dressed like that, I thought, oh, he's so cute. But and Uo tells her not to worry. And it's that most people think that. And then Tohru worries internally that Sohma-kun is really hurt, but he's still dressing like a girl for everyone, and he's therefore very kind. But Toru's worries are interrupted by a shout in German again. It's Momiji. And he says what I can only roughly translate as "Dear Heavens" in German, and jumps on Yuki and asks why Yuki looks like a girl, also in German, I think partially in German. And everyone looks surprised. Huh?
He's got another snack, by the way.
Yes! Oh, yeah, he is. It's just, I made a note. It says it looks like he's holding more candy. I don't know what that snack is. I think it's like maybe
Like a
licorice.
licorice type thing, I
That's what I
think.
thought. And I tried to Google shapes of licorice, and then it gave me all those like wine gums and stuff. And I was like, this isn't what I wanted. Anyway,
It's not a Twizzler.
no. And I Googled licorice whip thinking that that might be what it was. And then I just got Twizzler shapes. I was like, okay, well, you bested me, internet. But yeah, he's definitely holding more snacks, of course. And Kyo is like, what is he doing here? And Tohru is like, do you know him? Because Tohru recognizes him from the other night. Then the man that we saw last time, known as Hari, appears, dressed again in what appears to be a suit vest. And he's scolding Momiji. And he's like, hey, he comes in and he's also like, hey, you look well, Yuki and Kyo, you know? And I thought that this sounded kind of harsh. It sounds weird. It says like, hey, you look well, Yuki, Kyo. And like, that's it. So I also checked in the Japanese version, and it's just kind of a grammatical construction where I think it would be hard to fit it in the two speech bubbles, because like if I translated it, I would just say like, you both look well, you know, something like that. But because it's in these two bubbles, you have to, so it sounds really harsh, but I think he's just being chill. He's being himself. Anyway.
I didn't read it as harsh, just like addressing two people.
That's okay, good. Well, I did. And I was concerned because I thought, well, because we know that Kyo, the reason I thought I wanted to look at it is because we know that Kyo is kind of seen as an outsider. So he says the sentence in a way that's like, you look well, Yuki, Kyo, like as if he's kind of adding at the end. And so I was like, well, I wonder if he's being a little harsh toward Kyo, but I don't think that that's how it is. I think it's just spread out over those text bubbles. And I think he's actually...
I just read it as kind of the like formal thing where you just say the people's names in order.
Yeah, and I think, but I think he's actually, the way that he says it, he's actually acknowledging Kyo equally. So I think that's nice, actually. It kind of flipped it around for me, so that's why I pointed it out. Anyway, so Yuki, he looks immediately, again, concerned, as I always say in every episode. Maybe even like threatened a little bit. Alarmed, yeah. It's like he's trying to play it really cool, but I think like deep down he's very, very concerned. And he's interrupted by all the girls. Before he can say anything, he's interrupted by all the girls in the class freaking out over how handsome and adorable Momiji and Hari are. And they're like, oh, so you know them? And Momiji introduces them, and he introduces them saying that he's half German and Japanese, and that they're relatives of Yuki and Kyo. And Tohru asks Kyo if that's true, and he's like, yeah, but forget about why Momiji is here. What is Hatori doing here? So now we know his name is Hatori, so now I can finally say it. So Tohru was like, wow, I met a Sohma without even knowing it. So kind of like, she also steps out of this moment and is really excited that she's met another Sohma. And she wonders if they're in the Zodiac as well. And Hatori is like, well, that being said, when did you become a woman? And Yuki is like, how dare you say that after you see me naked so many times? And all the classmates are like, what? What? No way. And Yuki's like, no, it's not like that. He's my doctor. And of course, Hatori whips out a stethoscope immediately. The lesson to be learned here is to never be without your stethoscope. That's what makes him a doctor, right? If you carry a stethoscope, that makes you a doctor.
Talk softly and carry a big stethoscope.
Yeah, basically. And always wear a suit. So he...
terrible handwriting.
Yes, exactly. I wonder if Hatori's handwriting is terrible.
I don't know, I'm curious now. I well, never see him writing anything.
I don't think so, but we'll have to look. I'll make note of it. So he asks Yuki to take a deep breath. And then they bicker because Yuki missed his checkup. And so Yuki is like, why do you have to do this in front of everyone? And Tori's like, well, you should have just come for your checkup, and then I wouldn't have to examine you here. And Tohru is like, oh, are you not well? And Hatori explains that Yuki has weak bronchial tubes, and it gets better as he gets older. And I immediately thought, is like asthma? And no, it's a different thing. It's a specific type of... I mean, I don't know. I just Googled weak bronchial tubes, and there's a... Because, I don't know. I didn't know what I was going to find. And apparently there's a situation where you can have weak cartilage in your bronchial tubes, and it apparently occurs in children that are quite young, and it just gets better with age. So yeah, if you Google weak bronchial tubes, you'll get to the Wikipedia page that describes this. I'm just saying. I always kind of thought, I thought it, yeah, anyway, I know, I just like to sprinkle little bits of knowledge in here, just like how last time we talked about how someone who writes belles lettres is a bellatrist. You know, I just aim to educate and enrich the experience of reading this manga. But I don't know, I also just kind of thought that it was kind of like asthma, but it's maybe a little bit different. Anyway, that's all. So Hatori asks if she's Tohru Honda, and she introduces herself. And Hatori says, "I see. So you are just a normal girl," which I think is interesting. So Yuki also is about to say something to Hatori, but Momiji causes a distraction by climbing all over the onigiri stand. And he's also stolen Yuki's flowers that the girl gave him and woven them into a hat.
You can see it happening in the background of a few panels through the last few pages.
I love how
the flowers and they're on his hat.
Yeah, he's holding them. Then they're separated. Then they're on his hat. There's so many things. In addition to that one little tiny panel of Hana that I never noticed before, there's all these things that are like happening in the background, and all these scenes that like carry through the scene that you see happening slowly that Takaya's added in, and I think they're really nice. It's like or they're woven into like how Hana was reading the book, Shigure's book, and when they were visiting, and it's like actually woven into her reactions in the rest of the chapter, and like the same thing here. Like he's now those flowers are in his hat for the rest of the time, which is nice. It's just like a little
fun little continuity.
Yeah, it's cute. I like it. And then so Tohru excuses herself from this conversation with Yuki and Hatori to go and help her classmates deal with Momiji. So Yuki and Hatori can then have this side conversation that Yuki has been desperately trying to start for the last 5 minutes. So Yuki wants to know why Hatori is there, and he explains that Momiji brought the flyer for the culture festival, and Akito saw it, and Akito said he was going to come, but he had a fever, so Hatori came instead to chaperone Momiji. And Yuki's like, well, you're not doing a very good job, while he's like climbing on the stand.
Like shouting going in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Hatori said that he would rather have come when there were less people around, but he assures Yuki that he didn't come to do anything to Tohru, and that Akito would have to be the one to make that decision. And they share this very like fierce, bitter, Yuki looks very bitter, I think, look toward each other, that I also never really noticed before. It's fierce. I don't actually know really how to describe it. Those are the words that I thought of. It's kind of like at the bottom of that page.
Not concerned.
It's definitely not concerned for once. It's beyond that. It's like kind of, it's bitter. Like it's resentful, perhaps. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it looks like it's kind of shared between both of them. Like Hatori looks kind of defensive too, to like Yuki's obvious discomfort with him being there. But then Hatori eases the tension by saying that Yuki won't get very far threatening him in that outfit. And he's like, why are you the only one cross-dressing in the small text? And Yuki's like, thank you very much.
Hatori is actually hilarious.
He's so good.
He's seen as a really serious character, but he's really funny.
Yeah. Also, the two of them together are really funny, because what Yuki actually says, so I also looked this up. I don't think I was even looking this up for something specific in Japanese, but I just wanted to know what he said. And Yuki says this phrase, which is like, Yuki's like, thank you very much. And so I looked this up in Japanese, and what he says is, Okina osewa da. And what that, it's like, it's not a phrase that I'm familiar with. Like, I've never really heard it before. But apparently what it translates to is like, it's none of your business. And the phrase like, osewa is like a polite way of saying like help, so you or your assistance. So normally you would use it in a phrase like, oh, thank you for your help the other day, or something where you're actually trying to be polite. So he's like using it really ironically, and I thought that was really funny. Like, it's even funnier. It's even funnier than just saying like, thank you very much. It was like, it's kind of funny. You can tell that he's trying to be ironic, but I think it's even more funny and ironic in Japanese. I don't know.
Yeah. I do like the punctuation though, because like, thank you so much.
So much. You can definitely interpret it that way. It's like, thanks for your help. And I love, just like you were saying, I love how sarcastic Yuki is, especially Yuki and Hatori together. Like, they're both really funny. Hatori, it is kind of this, it's interesting how he comes in and they're all so concerned. Like, Yuki is immediately on guard. I guess it's because they care about Tohru so much.
Yeah,
and they know
Kyo's a little wary too.
Yeah.
He's just like, forget about Momiji. What's he doing here?
Yeah, exactly. And of course Momiji is wreaking havoc, which I'm sure Kyo hates. But yeah, he's immediately there like, oh no, Hatori is here. But then Hatori is like, hey, yo, you guys look great. What's up? Like, it's not like he knows. I think he knows that they're super on edge. But then he's just so funny. Like, he's really, I don't know. He's immediately positioned as also having that sense of humor, which is nice too. Mm-hmm. Anyway, meanwhile, Kyo has taken care of the Momiji situation. So
Being a better
Tohru,
chaperone than Hatori.
yeah, well, I don't know if hitting someone makes you a good chaperone, but he's definitely got him off the
Hatori
onigiri
was doing
stand.
nothing, so
Hatori
anything would
was
be a step
there.
up.
Hatori was there to make sure that Yuki can breathe. That was his number one
Yeah.
mission. But yeah, he wasn't doing anything to help get rid of calm Momiji down. So Tohru pops behind the curtain, behind the stand. She sees Momiji and Kyo there, and Kyo is telling Momiji to behave or go home. Momiji is whining that Kyo hit him. So Momiji snaps out of it when Tohru pops up and is like, "Hey, it's Tohru. How are you? I came to see you." And Tohru, who I think a little bit hesitantly is like, "Oh, you're from the Sohma family, right?" And Momiji says, "We had a fateful encounter," and Kyo asks about it. Momiji explains that they met at his father's building and that his father is the building manager, so Momiji is there a lot. And Tohru was like, while he's saying this, and then when he's done, she's like, eh. She's like, "I've been cleaning a Soma building this whole time." Momiji is like, Tohru is so dumb, which I thought was kind of mean, actually. It's really intense. And she's like, I think she thinks, like, but the sign was different, and Yuki never said anything when he came to pick me up. And there's a little author's note that says Yuki didn't know that that was a Soma building. But Miji is like, "You know about the Zodiac thing, right?" And she's like, yes. And so she's like, "Then I can hug you." And then Kyo's like, "Hold it, lover boy. Think of where you are." And Tohru has switched, her mood has already switched back to being excited about thinking that he might be part of the Zodiac and wondering about Momiji. And Momiji's like, "Oh, you're hogging Tohru? Are you hogging Tohru because she's so cute? I bet you hug her every day." And Kyo's like, "Why would I want to?" And then, of course, this Momiji has distracted him significantly enough that he can jump up and he's like, "My turn," and hugs Tohru. And the explosion of him transforming catches everyone's attention. And they peek behind the curtain to find a goddamn adorable rabbit and a blushing Tohru. And I also forgot, like, we talked about Kagura and how cute her zodiac form is. And Momiji, I think, maybe has the cutest zodiac form of all.
The rabbit's super cute.
It's adorable. It's wonderful. It's adorable. He has these little, like, black tipped ears. It's very cute. And but anyway, in this situation, not so cute because everyone is about to find out the secret. So they're like, oh, they have this, Kyo and Tohru have this expression that I also described as, "Oh fuck." So the classmates find Momiji's clothes and they're all like, "Did he just take off his clothes and wander off? It's so weird. Say something, Honda-san." So they go from being like, "What's so weird?" And they immediately start pointing the finger at Tohru, which I thought was interesting too. I guess because the bunny is on her knees. I don't know. But meanwhile, Yuki, who has been hearing this, clenches his fist and he saves the day by saying, "In that case, I'm weird too. I'm dressed like this and you're all going on about rabbits. It must not suit me at all." And so they all turn around and turn their attention back to Yuki. And they're like, "No way, you're the best. You look incredible. Believe in yourself." And it looks like it's a bunch of guys in the class saying this too, which is interesting. And he's like,
he's got some weaponized shoujo sparkles going on in that panel too.
He does, and like dreamy eyes. And he's like, "Thanks." Meanwhile, with everyone distracted, Tohru runs off with Momiji, and Kyo and Hatori and the two of them end up on the roof. And Momiji is whining to Tohru that Kyo and Hatori are being scary, and they're like, "Seriously, you're lucky that Yuki threw them off." Kyo also laments that Yuki's always trying to steal the spotlight with his good looks and that he probably likes, but that it gets interrupted by Yuki punching him in the air.
A highly detailed action panel.
Yeah, the most detailed action panel that we've seen.
It's stick figures.
It's stick figures. Perhaps it's just the scale needed to be represented with stick figures to fit in the panel. So Yuki scolds Momiji as well and tells him that he needs to be careful. And Hatori says it's time to go. But before they leave, he asks Yuki and Kyo to stand side by side. And he says that he wants a simple, concise answer to the question he's about to ask. What is 2 + 1? And as they answer, he takes a photo of them. And he says that the photo is for Akito. So Hatori and Momiji say goodbye, and Kyo runs off after them to get the camera. And Tohru was like, I didn't get to find out anything about Hatori-san. So, like, after all the chaos, she's still like, wait, I didn't get to find anything out about him. As they leave, Yuki slumps to the ground, and he's like, my life is over. What will Akito think when he sees me in this outfit? He starts to kind of, like, take it off, and Tohru's like, no, you'll catch cold, your lungs, your trachea, or whatever. And he's like, it's harder, it would be harder to endure wearing this. And she's like, but everyone was happy to see you. And she's like, Yuki's like, guys don't like being called cute. And Tohru was immediately like taken aback. And she's like, I'm sorry. I'm as guilty as everyone else then because I thought you were cute too. And Yuki is also like, I didn't want you to see me either because I look like an idiot. I should have just told them no. And then Tohru is kind of like, but I mean, I was happy when my mom told me that I was cute. And then she has this memory of her with her mother hugging her, saying that she's cute. And Tohru thinks they're words of love, Mom, I won't ever hear them again. Which I thought was, it was just like heartbreaking, actually, in the middle of the scene. There's all this like chaos going on, and she's trying to convince Yuki she's trying to cheer up Yuki, and then she has this really like heartbreaking memory kind of in the middle of that.
Yeah,
but then
she has to like snap herself out of that.
Yeah, I think she does. And she's like, but they're just saying that they like you, maybe. And then she's like, maybe I'm not explaining myself well. And Yuki says no. And it's strange though, because he doesn't mind it when Tohru says it. Ooh. I wrote in my notes. This is my favorite part of all shoujo manga. Anyway, she's like, eh. And he's like, he says that he decides to keep the fan service up a little while longer, but then he needs her help to untangle one of the buttons from his luscious hair.
So he looks super cute in that panel.
Yeah, he's like, oh, but can you help me?
Button cut on his hair.
It's adorable. It's like, I relate, Yuki. I relate to everything that you're saying. Yeah. He's like, he says something like, I didn't write it in my notes, but he says something like, this dress is so complicated, so hard to like get in and out of. And it's like, I feel you.
Yeah, the struggle of girl clothes.
Yes. He probably doesn't have good pockets either. Yeah. So he tells Tohru that, so she sits down to help him untangle the button from his hair, and he tells Tohru that he thinks that it will look good on her. And then she's like, no way, it's a princess dress. It's a dress for a princess. And as Tohru frees the button from his hair, Yuki says, you're cute. On you, Hoda-san? I'm sure it would be very pretty. And then he smiles. And it's not the same as his like genuine smile from before, or his like slightly embarrassed cute smile from when they played Daihin Min. It's like, I think it's like a flirty smile. Mm-hmm. I looked at it for a long time and I was like, oh, Yuki, I see what you're doing with your face. It's like very relaxed, but also kind of, he's got these like narrowed eyes, like he's trying to look into her soul a little bit. But anyway.
This is how normal people flirt, right?
Right.
Try real hard.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think he's nailing it. Because after this casual, intense compliment, he hops up and he's like, thank you. Shall we go back to class? Like, he just like, as if it's nothing. And meanwhile, Toru's like sitting on the ground like, I've used the phrase Tohru freaks out so many times, but I think this is the most legitimate time I've ever used it. So, Tohru freaks out. And she's like, I don't know what to say. I don't know if I should feel shocked or moved or flattered or upset. She's like, Sohma-kun thinks I'm cute. It also reminded me of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I'm cute.
I'm cute. I'm cute. What do you think the crossover is of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer fans and Furuba fans?
It probably runs a little higher.
Do you think so? I bet it's even lower. I don't know.
I think most people of a certain age and certain culture have seen Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Probably. So, us North Americans, perhaps.
There's a small portion of those that have gone on to read Fruits Basket. It's probably still larger than the other crossovers.
West Side Story. Anyway, so she thinks Sohma-kun is a real Prince Charming. And so they go back to class, and Yuki immediately they see Kyo, and Yuki's like, did you get the camera? And he's like, shut up. No. And Yuki turns around to talk to Tohru, and Tohru's still silently freaking out behind him. Which I also think is funny, because that means they walked all the way from the roof back to class, and she's still in that same, like, mindset. Tohru's still freaking out silently behind
Yuki. They call
Yuki.
that screaming internally on the internet these days?
I think so. It's like screaming with joy internally, though. When I think of screaming internally, it's like when I would use the scream emoji for something bad. This is like, can't stop.
I think it can be anything.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Anyway. Okay. So, Yuki turns to Tohru and explains to her that she should avoid being alone with Hatori, which is what he was clearly worried about this whole time. Not because Hatori's bad or anything, but because he was the one who suppressed all the kids' memories from the incident when Yuki was little and he transformed.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun dun dun. But on that note, immediately Tohru gets paged to the office where Hatori is waiting for her.
Yeah.
Smoking! Smoking inside a school. I mean, I think, I feel like, of course, even today, smoking culture is different in Japan than North America, where we live.
Yeah.
Like, we went to places recently where there was still, like, smoking in restaurants, and there was, like, and it was
Smoking car.
smoking car. But it was still mind-blowing to me, though, because it's like, also, he's at a school. Like, it's just...
Yeah.
But I guess he's in the, like, office. Maybe they don't smoke in the classrooms or something. Maybe the teachers can smoke in the office, but it was still, like...
There's a joke in something I watched where someone was, like, going through the teacher's lounge, and it was just, like, covered with smoke.
Yeah. I think there's a joke like that in The Simpsons, actually. Anyway, it's just not that important, but I noticed it immediately.
In the boys' room.
That's not a song that I can sing. I don't know.
That's the only line I know.
From what song?
Smoking in the boys' room? That's
Okay.
what it's called.
All right. Good times. Anyway, he says that he wanted to speak to her privately, but he, of course, wasn't able to with Yuki and Kyo there circling like sharks. That's not what Hatori said. That's what I said. He gives her his address and asks to speak to her on her next day off about something important and not to tell Yuki and Kyo about it. So she has this internal freak out, which I thought was also really funny. The way the panel is designed is really funny. Where she's like, Hatori was the one who suppressed their memories. Hatori was the one who suppressed their memories. And it's like over and over again.
It's just this like long, thin panel in the middle with a tiny Tohru at the bottom of all the
yeah.
suppressed their memories.
Yes. And but then her mom told her not to be mistrusting. So she's like, okay. And he says that she might even get to meet Akito. And then Momiji pops up and he's like, don't worry, in German. I'll be there to make sure that Hatori doesn't do anything dirty. And he's like, hey. And then he's like, Tohru is a girl. She'd be scared to be left alone with a man. Which is true. And then Tohru thinks that she'll feel a little better with Momiji there. And the chapter closes with her wondering about what Hatori wants to talk to her about. And on that note, public service announcement. If someone asks you to go alone to their house and not to tell people, don't do it. I feel like I strongly need to say this. It's just like our public service announcement about telling people that you're living in a tent.
And if you bring a friend along for safety, make sure it's not someone you met that same day at the same time as the...
Right, someone who's clearly in cahoots. Yeah, no. Having another person there who knows that other person is not a guarantee of safety. Oh, but nobody's there to tell Tohru that because her mother is dead, which is so sad. Anyway, I feel like her intentions of not being mistrusting are good, but sometimes you gotta not trust people. Anyway. Although she lives with strangers and I don't know, whatever. Listen, it's anime. Just don't. Tell someone.
Yes, they're family of the people she's living with, but...
Yeah, but she doesn't know them at all.
No,
and
I wouldn't. But...
I wouldn't. Or at least I wouldn't, no, meet in a public place, first of all, and don't not tell people who you're going to meet. Yeah. Ever.
Tell your friends and go to the Starbucks.
Yeah, always meet at Starbucks. There's a lot of awkward people there, don't worry about it.
Yeah. They're all writing their novels or whatever, so they won't pay attention to your conversation.
It's true. All right, so chapter 10 begins with Kyo bursting into the living room, shouting that Tohru has left the house again, and Yuki and Shigure are chilling, and Shigure is like, well, she went to a friend's house. She said so at dinner yesterday. But Shigure is like, it just goes to show you how much of this house Tohru has become. Where has our flower? Where's the flower of our humble home? And Yuki and Kyo are like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you dumb? Meanwhile, Tohru has come to a large, imposing-looking gate with an engraved placard on the front door the front of the side of the door bearing the name Sohma. And her heart pounds as she thinks that they must be a really important family, and she came as instructed without telling the others, and she might get to meet Akito. Tohru, just tell them where you're going next time, please. But Momiji pops up over the fence, which surprises her, and he's like, hey, you're right on time, come on in. The gate opens, and Momiji welcomes her inside the house, and inside, beyond the gate, we see even more kind of traditional-looking houses and gardens, and there's even like a little pond behind where Momiji is standing. And Tohru thinks that the grounds are huge and it's like its own little tiny town in there. And she also remarks on how the atmosphere is quiet and it's not helping her nerves at all. So Momiji leads her to Hatori's house. And as she passes, we see the person who I think we can safely say is Akito now, standing in a circular window, looking out as she passes by. lurking for sure, just like I do on Tumblr, as we just discussed earlier.
Akita's a Tumblr lurker.
Basically, Akito's the ultimate lurker. They arrive at Hatori's house, and she apologizes for not bringing anything. Hatori is like, don't worry about it. He invites her to sit anywhere, and he asks Momiji to get them drinks, which I thought was kind of funny. He's like, and Momiji, go get us drinks. Tohru, she sits down and she notices a photo of a woman and wonders who it might be. Like, probably not Hatori's mother, but she thinks that she wouldn't have imagined it. Hatori would be the kind of person to have a photo of a woman. Like, he seems very solemn and he sounds angry no matter what he says. And she also, this whole time, she's like kind of still sweaty and nervous. And she thinks, like, could it be the important thing that he wanted to talk to me about was my incompetence? And the question that I have about this is like, what incompetence regarding what? Like, like why does she think that? Like, what is that supposed to mean? Anyway, we can discuss it later, I guess. But Momiji asks her if she's okay, and he says that Hatori can examine her if she wants, and she's like, I'm fine, everything's fine. She asks about Hatori. She talks to Hatori, and she asks if he works in a hospital, and he says that he's a private doctor for the Sohma family. But most of that job means taking care of Akito, who's often sick, and Tohru thinks that Akito must have a weak body. Tohru also comments to Momiji and Hatori about how quiet it is, and Momiji says that everyone is inside at the inner gate preparing for the family's New Year celebration, and that even outside people often come to help with that. And she's like, inside, outside, and Momiji explains that there are people living on the road that Tohru walked in, and there's a little diagram in the manga, but on the road that Tohru walked in to get to the house, all of those houses on that tree-lined road are inhabited by Sohmas. And there are about 100 people living there outside and about 50 people inside the main house, which is a lot of people. I always forget this part. Like, it's so many. Hatori is like, that's amazing. And Momiji's like, is it? And Hatori says it's certainly not common, which I think is true. Tohru thinks that it's something that most people never get to see. Like, she recognizes again that she's being let closer to the family secrets. Momiji continues to explain that those on the inside are possessed or they know about the secret. And Shigure and Yuki used to live inside too, but Kyo has always lived outside, which is interesting to note. Hatori says that there are very few people, even family, who know about the secret, and that normally Tohru's memories would have been suppressed immediately, but Akito didn't give that order and even allowed Tohru to continue to live with them. And Tohru says that he's been thinking about it, and he asks if Tohru likes living there, and she says that of course she does. And he says, I think that it would be best if you leave that place. Do not involve yourself with the Sohma family anymore. And he says, I'm sure that Shigure didn't make clear the gravity of our condition. The Sohma family continues to be possessed by vengeful spirits. It's not the fun and games that you might think. It's bizarre, sinister, cursed. And we see Momiji, who, like, behind this narration, who's usually quite bouncy and happy, like we've seen him all this time, being super excited, but he's also looking kind of forlorn here when Hatori speaks. And then I also noticed that Hatori is sitting kind of separately from them in a chair while they're sitting on the floor together, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, the way that they're positioned, I feel like Hatori, maybe, he's almost trying to distance himself from Tohru a bit physically, too. Tohru is kind of shocked and maybe a little bit dismayed looking, like, by the look of her face. And Hatori continues, and he says, before you regret getting involved with the Sohmas, get out. But a doorbell rings, which Hatori stands up to get, and Tohru's like, I don't understand what he's talking about. And eventually, and she doesn't say anything, but Momiji starts talking, and he tells Tohru that Hatori used to have a girlfriend named Kana, who was his assistant. And she was sweet, and when she found out about Hatori being possessed, she laughed and said that she didn't care. Which, of course, has revealed that Hatori is also one of the Zodiac. They were going to be married, but when Akito found out, Akito got so mad that he went into a rage and wouldn't allow the marriage, and he hurt Hatori's eye. But Hatori didn't blame Akito. Kana blamed herself. She agonized over it, and she said that it was her fault. And eventually she got, as Momiji describes it, she became heartsick, and Hatori then erased her memories. He couldn't watch her fall apart, so he erased the time when they loved each other. Kana left, and Tori cried, but he still didn't blame Akito. And Tohru asks why, and Momiji says that's because that's part of the curse. Momiji says That's why he doesn't understand what Akito is thinking, but he understands how Tori feels. He doesn't want to send Tohru away like Kana. He doesn't want Tohru to be hurt like Kana was. Tohru realizes, you can see this kind of like you see the photo, like Tohru is realizing that the photo must be a picture of Kana, and tears well in her eyes, and she starts crying, and Momiji is like, why are you crying? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry. And she says, no, that's not it. Hattori-san is too kind of a person. She thinks I'm crying because he's worried about me, even though he might be the one who needs the most kindness right now. Hattori finally returns, as she's saying, like, I'm glad I got to meet everyone. Even if I'm being used for some purpose, for giving me the life that I have now, I want to say thank you. I'll never regret that I got involved. I never could. I'm the way I am now because of Sohma-kun and the others. And Momiji is like, what about me? And she's like, of course. And then Momiji smiles this really nice, genuine smile also. Like, he's also kind of relaxed. And he says that Tohru is like a mutti, which means mom. And she makes him feel safe. Shigure, at that moment, pops up from behind Hatori and says, like, we didn't get you involved in our mess to hurt you, Tohru-kun. And we're not using you, which, of course, I don't believe for a second, based on any of the things that have just happened. And Tohru asks why Shigure is here, and he says it was intuition, because a writer must have sharp sixth sense, and Tori is like, you just wanted to see the preparations. Don't be like that for New Year's. And they pick on each other a bit more. Momiji says they act like that, but they're really friends. Shigure chastises Hatori for worrying and scaring Tohru, and Toru's like, it's okay, and she thanks Hatori for worrying about her. While she's expressing her feelings of gratitude and her determination, Hatori plops a small camera on top of her head. And she's like, what? And he's like, wasn't this the agreement? If you came here, I would give you the camera. And she's like, he never said that. And Shigure and Hatori continue to bicker. And then Hatori's like, oh, you still haven't met Akito. And Shigure says it's no good. He went to see Akito earlier and got shooed away, I guess maybe for whatever reason. Tohru has more important questions, though, and she asks Hatori about his zodiac form, to which Momiji and Shigure respond with a resounding Shigure is like, great question, Tohru-kun, but Hatori cuts him off and threatens to tell all the publishing industry all the great blackmail that he's been collecting since Shigure was 4, which of course stops him from spilling the beans. And Momiji is like, come on, she'll find out eventually, and Hatori is like, no. And you, stop asking stupid questions, which I think is supposed to be directed at Tohru. She's like, yes, sir. Yeah. And then she wonders what zodiac sign is supposed to be funny. She's like, which one was funny? Was there a funny zodiac sign? But Hatori kind of backtracks a little bit and apologizes. And then he says, I kept making you cry today, didn't I? And Tohru smiles. And Hatori is a bit taken aback, and then he returns her smile. And Hatori's heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Second Christmas special reference of the day.
It's the Christmas special reference I've been using all week, because I said that to people when I read those comments on Tumblr. Like, my heart grew 3 sizes, and now Hatori's has 2. Anyway, Shigure and Tohru take off, and Shigure is like, that Hatori, calling you out here and causing you trouble. He's not a bad guy, though, and Tohru says that he seems like a nice person. While they're walking out of the main house, she has this inner monologue where she says, it seems like she purposely changed the subject away from Akito. And even though Hatori seemed fine when he said Akito's name, she wonders about everything Momiji said, and then she thinks, does he like him? Is he afraid of him? And the monologue ends on, that's part of the curse. An ominous wind blows with some leaves, and Tohru turns to look behind her over her shoulder. She's passed by Akito, who's hanging out of a window, and it looks like a different window from before, who's eyeing Tohru with suspicion, I decided is the look on Akito's face. And Tohru looks back with this kind of cautious, concerned look. The moment then passes, and Akito retreats back into the house. And Shigure calls to her, and he's like, Tohru-kun, we'll get separated. If we get separated, you'll get lost. And she wonders if if that's Akito that she saw. Of course, we know it's Akito, or at least we have made the very strong assumption that that's Akito. And she asks, Shigure-san, what is the curse? Do I have to do anything? And Shigure, with a look of... I've decided that this look is kind of pleased. I almost wrote a look of pleasure, and then I was like, that's not really right. But he looks like kind of... I don't know what you think. You could look at the last chapter or the last page. It's mysterious, but I think it's kind of pleased. I think he looks, perhaps chuffed. Maybe not so chuffed. Anyway, but also it does look kind of sinister. To me, if someone looked at me with that look, I would be very uncomfortable because it has this like I don't know. It looks like things are going his way, whatever the way is that he thinks. I think you know, like I don't know. That's how I feel about it. But he says you just need to be you. As for the rest, I think it's still too early to tell you. I'm sorry. Tohru thinks, I feel like I've learned a lot, yet I haven't learned a thing. I have a strange feeling about today. Will the day come when I understand everything about the Sohmas, good and bad? The day when I meet him? So they return to Shigure. They return to the house to find Yuki and Kyo asleep under the kotatsu. If you don't know what a kotatsu is, it's like it's a heater that goes under a table and then it has like a blanket thing. Because houses in Japan don't often have central heating, especially like old ones like Shigure's. So it's a place where you stay warm during the winter. They seem magical, personally. Especially because I live in Canada and it's fucking cold here. I'm always tempted every year. Anyway, so
Don't burn your house down.
no, I won't. I can't. I won't. I mean, I could, but I won't. It's just so cold. You don't understand. Anyway, Shigure says it's true. Even a kotatsu can put, or a kotatsu can put even little devils to sleep, or something like that. And then there's a little note that says Yuki's dreaming about cheese and Kyo's dreaming about fish.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? It's really funny.
Yeah.
Oh, it was cute. Hatori looks at them sleeping and thinks, worrying about it won't help. Whatever will be. Whatever won't. That's life. The way I feel about them won't change, and the days I live in this house are precious. And then Shigure suggests that they stick chopsticks up their noses, and everything is right with the world at Shigure's house. At the end of the chapter, there's also an omake with Hana. I guess Hana is the subject of a lot of omake, which is really funny. Yeah. But there's some girls who are teasing her, being like, oh, can you kill people with your denpa? And she's like, well, my classmate from grade 4, who was the class pet keeper, he might be out of the hospital by now. And the girls are like, out of the hospital? Anyway, the end. So, yep. That's what happened. Yep. There was a lot in this chapter, in these two chapters, especially the second chapter is things are changing. I think when we talked about, I guess we can go seamlessly into the discussion, but when we talked about this in the teaser episode or the trailer episode, we were talking about how like there's a lot of kind of people have this opinion about the series that it's like this cute, funny, like everybody's turning into animals and everything is cute. But I think now we're seeing the darkness start to come through, even to Tohru actually in the series.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we really see the curse referred to as something really dark.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Hatori is the one to bring that up.
And
I think it's also really interesting how Shigure is like, everything's fine, I stopped scaring Tohru, but the whole like context that they're in. One of the things that I want to talk about, which I guess we can kick off this discussion, is a couple of episodes ago, like maybe even in the first full episode, I presented this theory to you that perhaps like a house here in this story kind of represents, is like tied to one's identity and kind of tied to some of the characters changing. And I think like the fact that they're in the main house when all this is happening, and like Tohru says that the feeling there is really like oppressive. It's really quiet. It seems like nobody's there. It's physically behind walls. Like it's actually being guarded from the world. It's very secretive. I think it's interesting that this place is where this conversation is happening. This is where he's saying that the family is dark and cursed. And it's like the physical location is also adding to that. It seems quite dark. It's really weird that nobody's around, even though it's like a giant place.
Yeah.
And then I also thought the way, like, I also, like, Aikido, obviously I knew that Aikido, there's this scene, I think one of those, like, really memorable scenes, like, sometimes they happen and we talk about them. One of the really memorable scenes is this one where Toru's looking back over her shoulder and she sees Aikido for the first time. So Aikido saw her before when she was coming in, but she sees Aikido when she's leaving. And that's, like, a scene that I remember a lot. But I think it's interesting that Aikido is in different places in these two scenes. Like Aikido seems like Aikido is following her while Tohru is in the main house, like creeping around, waiting for her to show up, right?
Yeah, I think he's sort of being presented as just sort of an ominous, overlooking presence in this chapter.
Yeah.
He's like in the background that Tohru doesn't notice when she first comes in. Then she just catches a glimpse of him at the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also like overly stated. Like when Momiji says that Akito damaged Hatori's eye. Akito was mad when Kana and Hatori said they wanted to be married. It's the first time we're
And
hearing
Hatori's
about that.
speculating that Akito is using Tohru for something.
Yeah, it is definitely being speculated that there's a plan afoot. I don't know if there's more to say about that, but I think there's confirmation. And I think like now Toru's actually acknowledging it. I think they kind of alluded to it earlier in other chapters, but she also says like if I'm being used for something, it doesn't matter because I want to get to know the family and I'm who I am today because of being with Sohma-kun and the others. I thought her determination to stay with them was very strong, and I thought that was interesting. I mean, and I thought it was also interesting at the end of this chapter that she said, which is also something I didn't notice or pick up on very strongly before, she's like, maybe someday when she meets Akito, she'll understand the good and the bad of the Sohma family. And that it's like she'll take them. And then at the end, when she goes back to visit, she sees she sees Kyo and Yuki sleeping, and she says like, it won't, anything that happens, it won't change how I feel about them, which I thought was really interesting. So we're getting all of that darkness that we kind of talked about, or we're just starting to get more information about the kind of darker goings on. We know that Akito hurt Hatori because Momiji said that, and Hatori also warned her about not getting too deep. I don't know if you had more to say about that topic. I just was trying to bring it up and add on to some of the things that we said before about the darkness that underlies this series, and then also this talking about the main house and how it relates to their situation. These physical locations relate to their relationship to their family and themselves in this story, I think.
Yeah, I think there are a few like really strong settings in this series that are like important to the series, and the main house is one of them. So this is the first time we see it.
Yeah, we'll build on it, I think. But yeah, so we met Hatori. We met Momiji last time. We learned a bit about Momiji last time. We met Hatori. We learned way more about Hatori this time than last time. But not directly from Hatori himself, which I thought was also interesting. So Momiji is the one. Hatori invites her. Hatori, he sets up this whole thing where he's like, "Don't tell them you're coming," and like, don't. And he's like, "Oh, such a creep." He seems to be such a creep. But Momiji's dialogue is used to be like, he's just doing this out of the kindness of his heart. He doesn't want her to end up in the same situation that he's in or that Kano is in.
Yeah.
And Tohru recognizes that, and she also recognizes that he needs to be taken care of a bit.
Yeah. And that's kind of like a classic storytelling thing where you use a character you're more primed to like to make you like another character that's kind of harder to like at first.
Although I don't find Hatori hard to like because he's so sarcastic, but yeah. He's positioned as being creepy and mysterious.
Yeah. Like you're, just the way the characters are introduced, you're positioned to find Momiji likable from the start, but Hatori is meant to be a little standoffish. So and using Momiji to kind of soften you toward Hatori,
Yeah.
It's like having a dog go up and lick the hand of a character.
And then they're like, dog. Yeah. And I think he's right. Like, I think Momiji is right. Like, that's probably his motivation for bringing her here. I think maybe the reason he didn't want to tell Kyo and Yuki is because he wanted to tell her that privately. Like, maybe he didn't. Yeah. It's not clear, right?
Think he just wanted to talk to her without, like, interference from other people.
Yeah, without them. And he didn't know that they told her not to be alone with him.
Yeah.
So he was probably just like, everything's fine. She'll come over. It's going to be fine. She won't be terrified the whole time.
Yeah. I think his thought process is probably like, if you tell Yuki and Kyo, they're going to come with you and I have to deal with them while I'm trying to tell you important information.
I have to calm everybody down.
Yeah.
And I also like that he set up this whole scheme of like blackmailing them, but then he didn't even tell her about it.
Yeah.
I was like, way to go, Hatori. Like, he was like, wasn't that the deal if I gave you the camera to come here? And then he never told her that. I don't know. Hatori's interesting.
I think that was like to give her a reason for having come.
Perhaps.
So when she comes back.
Maybe.
It's like, oh yeah, we met up so I could get the camera rather than.
Right. Rather than for him telling me.
Yeah.
To leave. I guess, yeah, maybe he just wanted to tell her to leave privately. I mean, like, obviously he wanted to talk to her privately. Maybe that was why he wanted to talk to her privately, because he wanted her to have the opportunity to leave, and he wanted to try to warn her, but he didn't want Kyo and Yuki to know like that was why, I guess, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like to give her the chance to leave without having, like obviously Yuki and Ko don't want her to leave, so
without having to argue that with them, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe I think he's also, we kind of talked about how, so he's the one who erased Yuki's friend's memories. So of course Yuki and Kyo are very cautious of him. I think maybe he doesn't even want to, maybe he partially doesn't want to like damage his reputation with them. Because they were quite standoffish when he showed up.
Yeah. I think he knows that he's not BFFs with them or anything. So.
Tori can be my BFF.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he knows that. Maybe he doesn't want to damage his reputation with them any more than it already is. By being the one who tells Tohru to leave and then she leaves. And it's just like, Hatori, like, don't tell her to come by herself. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Different time.
Yeah, no, it was the 90s. Anyway, okay. And then, of course, we learned, I think we saw a different side of Momiji here. So we learned a lot about him last time. Oh, this time we learned that he's the rabbit.
Yeah.
So now we can talk about this. He transformed into a rabbit, an adorable, adorable rabbit. I wonder if there's anything about him that is supposed to be like the traditional rabbit of the Zodiac. I mean, I guess he's kind of bouncy. He's got kind of a rabbity, what I would assume to be like a rabbity personality. I think he's well liked.
All the time.
He does eat all the time. Rabbits, but he eats snacks all the time. I love how he showed up with a snack too. That was funny.
Yeah. Then he was like eating all their onigiri from the stand.
Yeah. And he's like, what? What?
Yeah.
I do think that we saw a different aspect of his personality, or we saw like a little bit of different, at least emotional range from him in this. While Hatori was warning Tohru to leave, he had a very different expression than he normally has. Where it was a lot more serious. And I think I described it as forlorn earlier. I don't know if there's another way that I can describe it, but
yeah.
And then of course he tacked on to Hatori's story that about Hatori's story, I guess, to Tohru. So he had they had a more serious moment, like a more serious interaction. He did also, this time he hugged Tohru again without her consent. And I think that was still overwhelming. I also thought, like, I don't know if it's just me interpreting it this way, but she seemed pretty hesitant when he showed up too, actually, I think, in the classroom. Like, a little...
I think she's mostly, like, shocked that the random person she ran into just showed up.
Yeah, maybe. I guess if you randomly ran into someone and they showed up at your school, you'd be like, what the hell? But I feel like that also adds to the same thing. It's like, his personality, I guess, is maybe a little bit overwhelming. I think she's getting this, after this time, I think she's kind of getting more, he's more vulnerable. He's not just like being super energetic and kind of in her personal space. Here, he was...
Well, even at the end of the first chapter, she says she'll feel better if Momiji's there, so it's not like she's got negative feelings toward him.
No. But I think that kind of changed. Also, she's more interested in him now that she knows that he's in the Zodiac, too.
Yeah. I think she's just kind of overwhelmed by everything at the beginning there.
Yeah, perhaps. And then, of course, like, everybody's overwhelmed when he's there wreaking havoc during the climbing on the stand and whatever. Even Kyo is, like, trying to get him to calm down. And
yeah, I do think it's interesting how Kyo kind of automatically sort of takes responsibility of Momiji.
Well, Yuki was busy. It's like Yuki, they kind of, I thought it was nice how they were both kind of, like, they were both really concerned about Hatori. Like, it wasn't just Yuki. Kyo was too, which I thought was nice. Like, it's almost like they're trying to keep Tohru. They were trying to keep her away, or kind of not have her be interacting with Hatori as much. It seemed like they were trying to protect her a little bit. Like, they might be worried about her. So like Yuki got Hatori, so Kyo had to take care of Momiji, right? They couldn't leave her alone, which of course Hatori commented on. He's like, I couldn't talk to you alone before in the office. So they did a good job. They were on, it's like I said last time, like, they can work together, they can be on a mission together. So the mission this time was making sure nobody found out that Momiji turned into a rabbit. So
yeah.
And of course Yuki sacrificed himself. I guess we could talk about Yuki and his cross-dressing adventure.
Yeah.
I guess it's interesting. There's an author's note. Let me read it to you. For people who are reading the, if you're not reading the Tokyo Pop version or whatever, there's there's a author's note at the very beginning of chapter 9, which is the first chapter that we read this time. It says like, I've wanted to do this cross-dressing, until now. I've been drawing stories that don't have any room for it. So with Furuba, I thought, you will do it, Yuki. That's his mind out of the gutter. But boys with feminine faces are destined to cross-dress or be made to. Think, if you asked him, I'm sure he'd hate me for it. Which I think is true.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting how she was like, it's planned. And I wonder what Yuki was motivated by. Like, was he just being nice, or was he just doing it because they're all upperclassmen and he feels like socially obligated to do what they ask him to do?
Mm-hmm. I think it might be part of his like trying to do things that make people like him thing that he talked about earlier on.
Like, obviously he's not into it. Tohru was right.
No, yeah.
And then she was quite worried about it, which I thought was very nice too. I thought the students' attitudes about it were really interesting. Like, they could have all been like, ew, gross. But they were pretty cool about it. And also, but then like, also at the same time, this was used for spectacle. Like, it's not like it's part of his identity or anything like that. And they even, so there's all the students who are like, you're cool, you're doing great. Like, we're so, like, go for it, Yuki. But then there were these other students in the class who were like, yeah, I don't know. Like, at the very beginning, they're kind of like, maybe he's, like, bringing in too much attention. Like, they're uncomfortable with the spectacle because it's drawing away from their achievement of the onigiri stand, perhaps. Or, like, it's just drawing attention to the spectacle. I don't know.
I didn't really get that at all.
They said... Yeah, so there's the first page where you flip it over. It's, like, 74. And it says... so the one girl, the upperclassman, is like, can't you tell Yuki doesn't like having his photo taken or whatever? And then it says, well, yeah, but he's too cute. Yeah. Somakun is the one bringing in all the customers. So...
I think that I read that as, I think the too cute is because you see it's mostly male classmates there.
Maybe.
Like, they're just uncomfortable with that. And the Somakun is the one bringing all the customers, I think, is just Tohru completing her sentence.
Maybe.
Because she says, like, the one who contributed most to the onigiri sales is
Somakun.
Before
Somakun is the one bringing in all the customers. Perhaps you're right. It is, like, interesting that I think most of the people commenting, there's the part where when he tries to draw everyone's attention, and he's like, because I'm dressed like, with his weaponized shoujo sparkles, as you called it earlier. Yeah. Most of the people who are commenting, I think, are the guys in the class. Like, the first two people that you see that are actually drawn in, like, fully in that panel, they're two dudes, and then they're all like, the things that they say are like, if you were really a girl, I wouldn't leave you alone. And he's like, he's right, you look incredible. No matter how I look at you, all I see is a woman. Believe in yourself. So it's a little interesting. I don't really know how to comment on this. I figured this would be a difficult thing to comment about, actually. Yeah. This whole scene. Because in this whole situation, I think he's just... It's awkward. I do think that it's like a spectacle. I think he's just participating. The fact that, like, the teachers, I commented earlier, like, the teachers come and you were like, that's weird, or you said something about it, I can't remember what it was. Like, it's
not okay.
It's not okay. Yeah, it's not. So he's, I don't know. So the students, the upperclassman who wanted this, he's trying to be nice to them, but then it's clearly turned into this, like, really intense spectacle that is making him very uncomfortable.
Yeah, like, I don't think he'd be happy with it either way, but I think probably when he agreed to it, he didn't think it was going to be as big of a thing as it turned out to be.
Yeah. He's, like, over his head a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think Hatori also, I thought it was interesting that even Hatori teases him even more than the students do. Like, he's like, when did you turn into a woman? Which is really funny, but also at the same time, it's like, kind of, it's really rude.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of like a familiar thing too.
Yeah.
Yuki also, like, kind of responds with the same kind of sarcasm.
Yeah, he does.
Like, without any hesitation. Like,
I think
he doesn't respond to any of the students making comments about him looking like a girl, but he pretty easily responds to Hatori with the same kind of
Hatori and
snark.
Yuki they're on the same level with their comments. But the students, he's just like, thanks, I guess. Like, he's kind of he's just doing it to be nice. And the students, I think their comments are what they are. So, but then then I guess that directly leads to this scene where they're on the roof, where Yuki says that Tohru is cute and the dress would look cute on her, which is also, I think, an iconic scene that a lot of people remember who've read this before. And I thought it was interesting how comfortable he is with her, to the point of now he's like flirting with her a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought it was also interesting how close they are when he says that. Again, like, she's fixing his clothes, just like the first time when she asked to still be friends when she was fixing his tie. And now the tables have turned a little bit, and he's like, well, this would look cute on you. So they're back in the same like position again, which I thought was really interesting. I kind of talked about this right at the end, but we can talk about Toru's visit to the main house and how Shigure said, I thought it was interesting. I do feel like it's confirmed that they're planning something. They're scheming something. And I thought it was interesting the way that I'll edit this out of this directly what I said before, but Shigure to Hatori, Shigure denies that anything is going on. There's no plan. And then literally 5 minutes later to Tohru, he's like, yeah, there is something going on, but I can't tell you about it yet. It's too soon to tell you. Just be yourself.
I don't think he's really confessing to being a plan, though. Just that there's more to the curse. But
perhaps, yeah.
I think you can read into, everything that's been going on to assume there might be something.
Yeah.
Brewing.
I think, the way you're interpreting is true. Rather than something going on, he's just like, there's something deeper for sure.
Yeah, because the question she actually asked him is, "What is the curse?"
What's the curse?
And then he's just basically saying, like, you don't need to worry about it yet.
Yeah. Normally, when we do this part of this podcast, one of the things that we talk about is the changes to the curse. So I feel like we did have an update to the curse this time, which is that there is something. So Hatori said a couple of times, like, Akido has to make this decision. Momiji said Hatori felt like he couldn't, that it wasn't Akido's fault. And Tohru said why? Because I guess, from an outside perspective, it's obvious that Akido getting mad and hurting Hatori is Akido's fault. It seems that way, at least. And Momiji says that's the curse. So we got this kind of interesting little nugget about the curse, that there's something, that Akido might be involved. And that
seems like this sort of, like, I don't know, subservience, not the right word, but like the particular kind of deference to Akido.
Yes.
The relationship to Akido is like also a part of the curse.
Yeah, like, it's not just the fact that he's the head of the family. He is also somehow involved in the curse.
Yeah.
Which we haven't heard before. So I think we kind of got that, which I'm sure will be expanded on later. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that so soon Tohru asks Shigure, what is the curse? And she also says, do I have to do anything? Which I thought was interesting.
I think she's maybe responding to the idea of if they're using her for something. Which is kind of interesting. She's like, do you need me to do something? Because I'm happy to.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like you just found out that someone who got really very close to the family, someone else who found out about the curse, like, I don't know what word is used exactly, but it's like became heartsick, became so overwhelmed with that, something that happened because of being involved with the curse, that Hatori voluntarily decided to erase her memories. And then at the same time, Toru's turning around and being like, is there something that you want me to do? It's very interesting. She's very determined. And she's determined to see them in a positive way. Like, when she goes home and talks about and sees Kyo and Yuki sleeping, she's then like, whatever happens, it won't change how I feel about them. It's like she knows that they're good deep down, perhaps. Yeah. We got a lot of information in this chapter. There were some big things, I think, that happened, that got set up in this chapter. Yeah,
I think these are this chapter's kind of the big one that really kind of paints the darkness of the series, because it's the first one where the curse is really referred as a dark thing. And it's also the first, like, you've seen members of the Zodiac be kind of wary about Akido as a presence and kind of demonstrate some kind of fear or uneasiness. But this is the first time you've really seen like Aikido is like violent.
Yes,
like they have a real physical reason to fear Aikido.
They do. Yeah, they do for sure. And this is the first time that Tohru has seen Aikido. So it's the first time that she's been anywhere near Aikido. And I thought it was really interesting that Hatori was like, you need to meet Aikido. You need to meet Aikido. Hatori, why are you so eager to get her to meet Aikido? Like, I don't know. Especially when we think that Aikido might be dangerous. Aikido's, lurking around.
I don't think he's really eager. I just think he thinks it might be inevitable.
Perhaps. Maybe he wants to go.
Because he said, like, you might meet Aikido when you go there. And then he's like, oh, you didn't meet Aikido, but Shigeru says Aikido's shooing people away. So that might be like, oh, good, we don't have to bring her to Aikido.
Maybe. Maybe he was also like, well, I'll be there, so it'll be okay. Like, if I go, like, because Aikido wanted to go to school. So who knows what that exchange was really like. Maybe he was really trying to protect Tohru, too. This is all speculation, but perhaps he was like, if you come and visit me also, then we can meet Aikido, and then it'll have taken care of meeting Aikido with me there. Maybe that was more like his plan. I think Hatori cares about her. He's definitely framed as being sort of a little bit sinister too. But I think he's trying to make sure that she stays safe. Because someone that he cared about did not. So
yeah. We also learned that Aikido is somewhat sickly.
Yeah, we did learn that
chapter, which is kind of interesting in contrast to the violence in that everyone's afraid of him, but he's showed as being kind of sickly and weak at the same time.
And also just the status as the head of the family. So the fact that they have to go to Aikido for all these major decisions, and then yet Aikido is someone who's like kind of physically weak. So Aikido is someone who can maybe exert some power over them, even if it's not just violent, but not physical either, like maybe not intimidating. They show a lot of deference to Aikido, regardless of the fact that Aikido is in ill health a lot. So one other thing that I noticed that happened in these chapters is that Tohru started to have this attitude that people's behavior toward her is kind of like somehow her fault. It happened a couple of times. When Yuki is really upset about and how she says that he was avoiding her even at home. She's like, I must have done something to make him upset. And then when she goes to Hatori's house, she's like, he must be here to talk about my incompetence. Like, it's all, everything is about things that she's done that have like offended other people. And I feel like I remember this being a trait of hers, but we didn't see that yet, I don't think, necessarily.
I feel like we have to, like, a milder degree. Like, I think there's been moments where she's like, oh no, did I do something? When someone was upset about something. I can't think of something in particular, but I feel like...
Perhaps. I do think this is the strongest time that we've seen. It's directly something that she said. I don't know that I have a strong comment or theory about this, but I thought it was interesting how it came up a couple of times. So I think we'll see that. And then, of course, another thing that I want to talk about Tohru is the memory that she has of her mother. I did call it out when we were kind of doing the summary part, but when I think about that scene with Yuki and her on the roof, I didn't even remember that memory. Like, I remember that she said her mother used to call her cute, and that's why, and that it meant that she loved her. But that, in retrospect, that memory is so sad. She's like, I'll never get to hear those words again. And then she has to, like you said, she has to snap out of it, and she's trying to help Yuki, but she's also dealing with this at the same time. And I think it's also one of the things that people perhaps think about Tohru who haven't read that much of the series or haven't gotten into the series that much. It's like she's perfect and she's happy all the time and she helps all these people, but I think it's her pain that helps people. Like, she's actually using this memory to then help Yuki. I wonder if this goes back. We heard some words from her mother before. Like, she talked about how her mother told her that everyone's kindness is different. I wonder if this is kind of continuing on that. Like, she's saying, everybody's saying you're cute, but what they really mean is like they like you and they're trying to be positive for you. Like, it's maybe not the words themselves that matter that much.
Yeah.
We haven't seen anything about her mother since that time, I think. So this was the first time she's back. Mom's advice is back. Yeah, it was interesting to see that.
I guess I was going to mention, it's interesting that they talk about New Year's being a really big event for Sohma's chapter.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah, you're right. It sounds like they have like a rip-roaring party. New Year's is coming in the series, so maybe at that time I'll do a little bit of extra research about like New Year's, how people celebrate New Year's in Japan and stuff. But I do think, like, they have an extra... It seems like they have a special New Year's gathering. The Sohmas do.
Yeah, which makes sense with the whole zodiac.
Yep. It's the time the zodiac is changing, I guess, yeah.
Yep. I think it's kind of interesting that he says even the outside people help.
Yeah.
Since, they don't know anything about the curse.
It's just like...
They're like, I don't know, I guess we just throw a big party at New Year's. It's a thing.
It's a thing that we just do. I mean, like, maybe... I think it's normal to celebrate New Year's with your family and stuff, obviously, in Japan, just like how we have parties. And so perhaps they're just like, we just do it up, like, more than other people.
Yeah. Just a really big deal for us for some reason.
Yeah. I think we'll get some more information about that in the future, because I know there's New Year's stuff coming. But yeah, I did think it was interesting that the outside people help. I forgot about that. I wonder what they do. Like, I guess they set up decorations. It said it's something. They're making preparations. It also seems like it's quite... I don't know. If Culture Day... So what I read on the internet, using the power of the internet, is that Culture Day is around Culture Day, which is like a actual holiday in Japan, which is in November. It's like November 3rd. So what preparations are they making 2 months in advance? Like, unless she goes a bit later. But still, even then, it's like November, December. Still like a month away. But yeah, it's interesting that the
might be farther away because it's probably the Lunar New Year.
Yeah, maybe. I don't actually know. I think that this is also speculation that I'll have to confirm with the internet, but I think that people in Japan actually, they celebrate New Year around January 1st. So like, I don't know if it's actually Chinese, like a Lunar New Year. It might be, but I think that it's my recollection from this before is that it's actually like the calendar New Year. Rather than the lunar calendar New Year.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different everywhere.
Yeah. The Lunar New Year is when the zodiacs change. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just celebrated on what's culturally normal for them. It's not strict to the zodiac
to the
tradition.
Moon. Yes, to the cycles of the moon, perhaps. I don't know. I'll Google it. I'll make a commitment to finding some more information about this for next time. Because I think that's coming up in like the next episode. So let's commit to learning some more about that for next time. But that's, Okay. I feel like that's all that we can say about that. But yeah, it was interesting that they invite only the people inside the main house know about the curse. And people outside who are still in the family are also invited to this like New Year celebration, and they help to set it up. So the whole family has a relationship with the New Year. Perhaps beyond other regular family relationships with the New Year. I guess one other thing, which we sort of talked about inside and outside, I think, a little bit, but one thing that I noticed is that Momiji said they're at the inner gate, which I never noticed before, so I'm guessing the gate is like the outer gate is where Tohru came in, and maybe there's even further gates inside the main house. The drawing, the little abstract drawing, it doesn't show that, it's not like quite clear, but I don't think it's supposed to be. So I think there might even be a further interior inside the main house.
I think he says something about Hatori's house being separate from the main house. So
yeah, maybe the main house has its own gate.
A gate for the main house,
Yeah, it does seem like Hatori's house is separate. Like, nobody else is around. Like, if what they're saying is true, that people are there, and people are preparing in the inner gate or near the main house or whatever, then Hatori's house would have been busier, I guess, or like the area would have been busier. So I think it is separate. Even though it's close enough that Akito can see it, because I think Akito wouldn't have left the main house. So
well, I think he's on the interior part, just not maybe like the main
part.
House.
Yeah,
like he's on the inside, but
Akito was creeping around, looking out of windows.
I think Akito kind of goes wherever he wants on the inside.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, of course, Akito can go wherever because Akito is head of the family. It all makes sense.
Yeah,
so goes around, creeps. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, if that's the end, then we'll play our music, and then we'll talk spoilers in a second. So. Yeah. So next time, I never know how to transition for anything. It's fine. Next time we're going to talk about chapters 11 and 12, which will be the end of volume 2. Yay. It's like yay or boo. I don't know which way, if you're getting sadder. But I feel like we haven't reached the halfway point, so you can't be sad about the series ending yet. We're just at the beginning, right? And as I told you earlier, I'm happy to stop reading my volume 2 because it's just falling apart. So I'm starting to get a little concerned. But yeah, so we're moving on. We're finishing it up next time. You can find us at staytogetherpodcast.com, Stay Together Podcast on Tumblr, which of course some of you have already, which has made me really happy. We're both, I could speak for both of us when I say that we're both really happy with the comments. Thank you so much for your comments and for listening. You can also email us at staytogetherpodcast@gmail.com. And you can, on the website, there's a contact form. So if you want to send us notes, of course, it makes my day every time. So thank you. And if you enjoy this, you can also subscribe and rate and review. I know people have been sharing this with people that they know who like the series, or they've been sharing on Tumblr or on Twitter. So thank you so much for those. I mean, it's going to help us find our audience, which is really nice. So thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. So we're back for spoiler time. Spoiler time. One of the comments that we got was from a listener who said that they're reading through the chapters for the first time, and I was like, I hope you're not listening to the spoilers. Please don't. Save it for yourself. So if that's you, don't. Also, I think it's too late because we already spoiled a bunch of things in the other spoilers sections of the other episodes. Yeah. So sorry, not sorry. We warned you with ukulele music. Basically, I think so. Okay, this one thing, here's what I want to start off with, which I couldn't talk about before, which is why it was so awkward when we ended the section where we were talking about Yuki cross-dressing, is that this isn't the first time there's cross-dressing in the series. Yeah. So I'm interested to see what happens later. I knew this was going to be difficult to talk about because I don't really have a strong informed opinion about cross-dressing or about cross-dressing in Japan or about cross-dressing in the 90s, so yeah. Or the early 2000s. But I felt like the way they treated it was definitely like it was a spectacle, and I felt even Takaya's note is very like, I just wanted to make Yuki cross-dress. I'm like, okay, yeah. Well, we'll see. But it plays a part in other things in the series, so I'm looking forward to seeing that again.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think in some ways it's treated really well by the series, in some ways not so much. So
yeah, I think so.
Which again, we don't have the cultural background to really make fully informed commentary on it. So
no, I mean, I feel like I don't even have
approaching this from a
from a North American perspective, from being in the late
North American perspective in 2019.
2019, yeah, it's a different time. We have a different perspective, but I mean, I think we can look back and say, like, I did think that the fact that the students were like, "You look so great," like they're very encouraging, but at the same time, they're also like really. The male gaze is quite strong. I don't know. It's very interesting. Like, I don't know how to describe it. They're like, you're great. If you were a woman, I wouldn't leave you alone. So it's like, well, okay, like, I'm happy that you're cool with it. But then at the same time, you're like really objectifying him as if he's a woman. It's very strange. I don't know. It's an interesting situation. I guess I could have said that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Yuki's clearly very uncomfortable. Like, it's not like I think we'll see incidents of cross-dressing where it's like Ritsu is more comfortable wearing, and Momiji, I guess, for the school uniform, is more comfortable wearing clothing that would be typically worn by the other opposite gender of what they identify with. But Yuki is clearly very uncomfortable, and he's doing it, and then everyone is treating it like a spectacle. Like, the students are coming, the teachers are coming to look at everything, to look at him. Everyone's coming to look at him. So yeah, it's quite, I don't know. Well, I think we can make a better opinion about how the series treats cross-dressing later, I think.
Yeah,
to say the least.
Touching on the Aikido issue.
Oh yeah, I totally didn't list that there, but yeah. Well, that's like beyond. It's beyond cross-dressing. It's like a whole identity. Yeah, being like raised to behave like a man, but it's like not even to. It's like to have that identity. It's like a persona for Aikido. Like, I don't know, because I don't know. I wouldn't. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have to get more detail before I can make a better opinion about that. Because I think that it's beyond, it's like a different situation. Yeah. I think the way that Aikido was walking around the grounds and kind of observing everything and like watching Tohru from the windows. Sorry, my internal thought, I pulled a Tohru and I was thinking something and then I said the end of what I was thinking, which is that I think Aikido was raised that way to have power for some reason. Like, that's what... like, being a male was important to maybe be seen as being in control of things. But I think Aikido,
reasoning.
Yeah.
At least that's the reasoning that was.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably other.
Right.
deeply fucked reasons for why that happened, but I think, like, but Akito's clearly shown as being in a position of power. Akito's stalking around. Akito is looking at them, except for with Shigure, because as we saw, Shigure was positioned above Akito in that one scene where they're in bed together, as far as we were surmised. So, but then and then Hatori, who's clearly, I mean, he walks in and he just like doesn't give a fuck and takes over everything at the school, and he has this, he treats his opinion about what Tohru should do. He's like, you should do this. He's very, I think, kind of straightforward, and he seems like someone who's in charge, and yet he is like, Akito makes this decision. I'm not in control of this. Yeah. I'm doing this for Akito. I'm taking this photo for Akito. So that's kind of an interesting relationship. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll get more things, and then I'll have to read some gender studies things in the meantime so that I can have a more modern and better informed opinion about this. But yeah, so we'll save that for next time. Just like we'll learn about New Year's for next time too.
Yeah.
One of the other spoilery things that I wanted to talk about was Tohru. The scene with Tohru. I just found it really heartbreaking. It's like she's clearly trying to help Yuki on the roof. And you can see that I said it before, that like I don't remember this part of this scene where she has this memory like that, where she says specifically, where she says that it's like, she said, I remember that she said that her mom used to call her cute, and that meant that she loved her. But then I didn't remember the part where she's like, I'll never hear it again. And I thought it was interesting that it's like we're already starting to see her, this happy facade that she has, unravel. It becomes a lot stronger later.
And that especially made me think of the whole thing later on where she's like so worried about forgetting her mom, and, like making the promise.
Yeah, she promised.
Because she's talking about how she won't be able to hear those words anymore.
I think that Tohru, that aspect of her character, it's something that she struggles with a lot. I mean, she's clearly, it's not very obvious, and even Yuki says like, oh, she looks so carefree at school, you would never know that all these terrible things happened to her. But she's really struggling. My theory about Tohru is that all this time in the beginning of the series, she's very, very much struggling with the loss of her mother. Yeah. And I think here we just saw it. We don't see it that much. Until...
it's only been, like, 4 or 5 months at this point.
Yeah, it's probably... So it was
maybe
May.
6.
Maybe 5 or 6. It's starting to sink in more, probably.
Yeah.
I think the person who, or the other character who shows up and then really brings this up a lot is Hiro, actually. Like, he specifically comments on it, like the way that she acts about her mother, I think while they're at the beach house. So it's going to come up again, and I think it comes partially to a head at that time too, so we'll see. It's kind of around that time that she's like, I can't forget her. There is a metaphor. I can't remember what it is. Yeah. So it's like, I gotta keep the lid closed. I can't remember whose box metaphor it is, because I think Yuki has one too. Anyway, she definitely is struggling with the feeling of forgetting and losing even more kind of a connection with her mother. So I think we just saw the very first little peek of that, I think. So yeah. And then we got... I know Hatori shows up early and we get his backstory early, but I always forget that Momiji, and I think it's interesting that Momiji is the one to tell Tohru about it. So we got his backstory in this.
And we actually don't get Momiji's backstory for a while.
No, I think we still got a couple volumes maybe to go, actually. But it's and then you see that he's like, I get where Hatori is coming from, which is a kind of a... It's just like how Shigure was like, when Kagura said, you don't understand a girl's feelings, and Shigure was like, well, I understand what it's like to be jealous. I think this is the same situation where Momiji is like, I think I understand what Hatori's going through, and it's like, you understand where Hatori's coming from.
I was going to say, one of the things I think is really interesting in the series is Hatori's relationship with the younger Zodiac members. Because, they're all kind of wary of him. And I think he is aware of that. And, they have reason to be, from, Yuki and Momiji especially, although I think Momiji and Hatori's relationship is especially interesting.
Yeah. I think they actually have a very strong relationship, despite that.
But I think he kind of thinks of the younger Zodiac is treating him kind of warily because of his abilities.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like at the same time, like when Yuki's warning Tohru away from Hatori, he says like Hatori's not a bad person, but if if Akito tells him to do this, it's gonna happen. So.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I was about to say. I think like in this case, Yuki and Hatori, they have an interesting relationship. I think it's showcased more later. There's a time where he like ruffles Yuki's hair. It's like way later in the series.
That's like one of my favorite Yuki moments because he kind of apologizes because he thinks he's like sort of subconsciously blamed Hatori for things or something, and Hatori just like ruffles his hair like a kid. It's really cute.
Yeah, it's really great. And I think Hatori gets that. I think that's why he's like, I mean, we talked about him wanting to have talk to Tohru alone. I mean, I think that's why. I think he knows that they're trying to protect her. Yeah. I think Momiji doesn't feel like that, but Yuki definitely does. I think Kyo is pretty cautious. Kyo probably knows. I always wonder how much everybody knows about everybody else's business in the Zodiac.
Yeah.
Like, Shigure knows about Shigure knows about Hatori and Kana. Momiji knows about Hatori and Kana for some reason.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, going back a little bit, but also in terms of that, I wonder if, like, Momiji did feel that way about Hatori earlier, and they had, like, a heart-to-heart at some point, which might be why he knows
maybe
about Hatori's story.
Because I think Hatori kind of takes care of Momiji. It seems like... Because Momiji lives by himself, right? So I think Hatori's probably, like, checking in on him and stuff. Yeah, it seems like...
kind of probably feel some responsibility.
Yeah. Well, who wouldn't? I mean, if you erased the memories of someone's mother.
Yeah.
And then Momiji's dad is, of course, like, not involved. So, I mean, he's there, but... I think Hatori, and of course, like, all the Zodiac, I think other than maybe toward the cat, I think they're all kind of like, we're in this together. Like, they kind of take care of each other. I think especially Hatori. It's almost like he's taken on this role of, like, he's the real, Shigure is, he's living with Yuki and Kyo. He's like, I said earlier, he's like their designated adult.
Yeah.
But I think that Hatori is the real designated adult. Like, he's the one who's kind of checking in on everybody.
Yeah. I think he's the only one of the adults who's actually kind of, responsible.
Yeah. Well, Yame is just absent.
Yeah.
And then I don't think Shigure is responsible. I mean, I think he's harboring... I do think that he's got a scheme, and he's trying to keep Tohru there to be acting on that scheme. And then he's got Kyo and Yuki there. I guess Yuki probably wanted to live with him, but even Yuki doesn't really trust him. Yuki was the one who, in the beginning, was like, well, they're scheming. So what are you scheming? Like, so Yuki lives there out of not wanting to be in the main house, and then even Kyo lives there, I guess, because Akito said that he has to.
Yeah.
We haven't been introduced to Kazuma yet, but Kazuma probably thought it was good for him to live with them too. So
yeah,
Hatori strikes me as the perennial adult, taking care of everybody, especially because of things that happen later too.
Yeah.
Like, even with Akito.
I guess Yame's actually got his shit together pretty well. He's just not a good caretaker.
He's, he just, like, didn't want to have a relationship with Yuki, and that has, like, it has, there's, like, backstory that supports that.
Yeah.
So he's just, he has his shit together in the sense that he's, like, a working adult. I mean, he has his shit together like we all have our shit together. Like, just barely.
Well, I mean, actually, I was thinking about, I guess this is more relevant when he's introduced, but I think he's one of the more self-aware Zodiac. I think he's very aware of his own flaws and foibles.
And that's why he comes back to try to have a relationship with Yuki.
Yeah, because even when he's, like, going all over the top, a lot of times he'll kind of stop and be like, sorry, I'm, being me again.
Yeah, I'm being me again. Sorry. Yeah, I think you're right.
Or supposed to, Shigure is like, what are you talking about? I'm great.
Yeah. I don't think Shigure gives a shit.
I think he knows he's kind of bad, but
yeah, he wants it to be that way. Yeah. Ayame doesn't want to stay the same. Shigure, no, I think he knows that that's what he's like, but he doesn't care. But we'll see.
I think he does care a little bit, just not as much as
he says, like,
achieving his goal.
Yeah. He's basically like, he says, like, I'm the most cursed of all.
Moment, and I think at moments he does feel guilt for some of the things he does. It's just not enough to deter him from doing his thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll see, at least, won't we?
Yeah. Just talking about things that didn't happen in this chapter.
Yeah, that's why we have a spoiler section. This is what it's for. So we can do this. I thought the main house, this is the first time she goes to the main house. And I feel like since we saw Akito kind of creeping around in these chapters, the flowers were there. I didn't point that out in the thing, but because I didn't want to say that. But yeah, Akito's flowers are there. Like, I think maybe when it comes up again, I'll bring it up again for the in the non-spoilery section. But
yeah,
the main house was interesting. I do wonder what this like main gate situation is. Like maybe it is a gate that's even inside for like the actual main house.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're right. Of course, Hatori's house and Momiji's house, at least, and some others were separate inside of the gate. So you have like the long path of outside people. Inside the main gate, you have some separate houses, and then inside perhaps another gate in the main house. There's a main house where Akito and like Ren and some of the other people are. But yeah, this I'm sure we'll see more. There's gonna be more stuff at the main house. And then Tohru comments on it. It's almost like a meta fourth wall kind of comment where she's like, most people don't get, it must be that most people don't get to see this. Like even the outside, even the family only comes in during like the New Year time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also always forget how big the family is, but then I start to think about it and it's like, well, you know, you have like the 12 Zodiac and then their family, like their immediate families, and then Akito and Akito's immediate family, and then the maids and whatever. That probably quickly adds up to like 50 people. So it's probably everybody inside the main house.
Yeah, if they count like the servants that live on the main.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of it.
The maids.
They're obviously in the know.
Yeah, they're in the know and they want to stay that way. Yeah, but then the outside people, like there's still a lot of Sohmas. So it's interesting how many they are.
Yeah. I wonder like I guess like the outside people like become inside people when they like have a Sohma child, like a Zodiac child.
I guess. Yeah, the whole thing.
A lot of them, it seems like a lot of them aren't like aware of it being a thing until their child turns into an animal.
I don't think any of them knew about it.
Traumatizing.
Yeah. I don't think any of them knew about it. I mean, maybe Hatori probably, well, Hatori's parents probably knew. At least Hatori's father or something knew because didn't he teach him the memory suppression?
I don't know.
I think so. I think he did.
And like, I think some of them probably had links to previous Zodiac members and so are already in the know, but it seems like some of them definitely were just outside someone's and then surprise.
Yeah. And then like Yuki's parents got double the surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they seem like they might have been in the know because they're very
hoity-toity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like aware of like this, like the rat is special and all these things and stuff. So.
Perhaps. But, yeah, I don't know. Perhaps. But yeah, it does seem like a lot of them, they definitely become inside people when they have children that are part of the Zodiac or cursed by the spirits. And it must not happen that often. Like they all have to, like they're new, the spirits are reborn when someone dies. So maybe it's like not even.
They even say it doesn't happen like they say like this is the first time in a while that all the spirits are present, so it doesn't even happen like immediately afterward.
Yeah, you're right.
Could maybe go generations between having a new Zodiac born.
Yeah, new Sohma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. The curse. When we learn more about the curse, is going to be interesting. Like we're gonna get to talk about it more.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Like a conspiracy board with string connecting all of the together. It's a thing.
Yeah, probably. Shigure probably has one.
Yeah.
That's what all those files that Rin was looking for that time are. And it's nice that we got
like bags under his eyes. He's like, I know how to break the curse.
We find a girl in the woods. Yeah. If I live in these woods long enough, someone will pitch a tent here. Like what? I wonder what they think like she's gonna do. I guess they just think that maybe by her accepting everyone, that will help break the cycle of them only being accepted by each other or something.
Yeah.
I wonder if he felt the same way about Kana. This is also wild speculation, but because Kana felt the same way, and it's in fact their reactions are directly compared. Yeah. In that one part.
It's about like I think it's kind of like the whole thing is like breaking the cycle. Because I've got some like half-formed thoughts about how like a lot of the younger Zodiacs are like actually wind up being pretty supportive of each other, and that seems like it might not have always happened. Like especially their attitudes toward Kyo.
Even Hatori, like I said, that one part I wanted to look. I looked at the Japanese not because I thought it was weird or anything, but because I thought it could be interpreted a little bit coldly, as if he just added him as an afterthought. But it's like not really the way that it's written. You know what I mean? Like as if he was just commenting because he was there. But no, I think he like genuinely was happy to see them, including Kyo.
Yeah, it's a very unformed like theory I've had, but just how they kind of seem like almost like they're caring more about each other than Akito maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, and like a lot of them actually seem to get along well with Kyo, even before the whole like ending thing.
Yeah, the ending thing, the whole end of the series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
think
Kyo
gets along pretty well with Momiji in their own way, and
he
gets along pretty well with Haru.
And I think like Yuki, the thing about Yuki and Kyo is like we've talked about how they are, now that they've been living together, their like role, how they play out the roles of being the cat and the rat is changing.
Yeah,
I think that's, I mean, it's, and then we have I think there's backstory where they've always like envied each other, and they have that connection with the hat story, so they have a history.
Yeah.
I think they all are getting closer as teenagers too. Like there's things of all them as kids, and it's not the same.
And like later on, like you have Kisa who's trying to like be friendly with Kyo because
yeah, it's adorable.
Because Tohru is friendly with Kyo.
Yeah.
And Hiro so shows some concern about like them being in a relationship if Kyo's gonna get locked away and stuff.
Yeah, I think Hiro. Sort of like, Hiro's a great character.
Yeah.
Side note.
But I think there's just sort of more like
they care
instead of just going like, well, this is how it is and how it's going to be. They're kind of going, this is kind of bad.
Yeah, this is bad.
Even we should just accept it.
Yeah, Rin is trying to break the curse, and she doesn't necessarily care. I don't know if it's that she cares about Kyo specifically or anyone specifically. I mean, she's trying to be with Haru, but I don't know if it's even all about him. But even then, it's like, well, she's caring about another person, another Zodiac
and like
member.
Kagura takes in Rin.
Yeah, and they have an interesting relationship. And then Shisho takes in all of them, so he's like another outsider who's kind of collecting somas. Collecting other somas, I guess.
Yeah.
Because he's aware of the situation, unlike most people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love how they laughed about... We didn't find out Hatori's zodiac sign, but they made that joke. I'm going to have to look up that pun also for next time. But I like how Tohru was like, what's a funny zodiac sign? Yeah. I thought that part with Hano was interesting. I don't think there's anything extra spoilery to say, but it's just like one little thing, one tiny thing that I never noticed before. I was like, oh, Hana's... I'm pretty sure she's like reading people's fortunes because the girl is there in front of her. It's kind of funny.
Maybe she's cursing people.
Maybe. She's using the thing... I think it's an antenna. Maybe it's supposed to be to like... to like read their waves better or something.
Yeah. Like $5 and I'll curse your enemies.
Yes, maybe. It's consultation.
Yeah.
I think... But I thought it was funny how Uo and Kyo are just like chilling on the floor. This is also not a spoiler, but to elaborate a little bit more. We need more Kyo.
Yeah, there's a lot of cute background stuff in that chapter.
Yeah, it was really nice. Stuff that I never noticed. Or like I just skip over. And it was really nice to see.
Like I never noticed the
flowers.
Momiji taking the flowers in his hat.
I didn't even notice that Yuki had got flowers from someone before. So it was nice to see that.
I had to go back because I noticed like that flower suddenly appearing in Momiji's hat. I'm like, where did he get those? And then I like traced it all the way back.
I was like, I did the opposite. I was like, oh, look, someone's giving Yuki flowers. I never noticed that. And then I looked forward and I was like, oh, now they're in his hat. Yeah, it was funny. I'm just looking at my notes to see if there's any more spoilery stuff. Oh, I have something to say. It's not necessarily... Well, I don't know if it's spoilery. So I wonder... So, like, I guess they're all supposed to have traits of their animals. What are Momiji's traits as a rabbit? Question mark. Yeah, hyper. Snack eating all the time. I feel like his is just, like, not... Maybe some of their traits are expressed differently. Like, they're less strong. Like, Kagura's is... It's, like, basically all her personality is chalked up to being the boar, right? With Momiji, I don't know. It seems like he has all these aspects about his personality that are almost... They're similar to Tohru's. Like, they're kind of they stem from the pain that he experienced of losing his mother. I think a lot of them. Like, he's very like kind and caring and empathetic. Yeah. He's done what Shigure said.
Yeah. I think the rabbit stuff is just like rabbits are seen as like, high energy and always moving and stuff.
He's still really handsy with Tohru. He's like constantly hugging her. It's like I still don't really know how to feel about it. She's getting more and more comfortable with it. But it's like, it's kind of...
Yeah, I think it's probably partly he's probably kind of starved for that kind of affection.
Yeah, probably.
It's like, oh, I can hug a person now.
Yeah, so
besides
sad.
My horrible family.
Well, he can't even. Yeah. Well, his dad's probably not going to hug him. His dad is probably kind of. I don't know what it says in the text about him, but he doesn't have a close relationship with his father, right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. I think the relationship his father mostly has is guilt because he kind of chose his father over him, and I think he feels bad for it. But
he's kind of like he's paying.
Because I think he kind of tries to like make it up with stuff.
Yeah, got the violin lessons. He's got
like a renowned violin player. And
stuff. I think so. And it seems like his house is like very well furnished, and it's like, but when she goes to his house, it looks quite big. Especially even compared to like Hatori's. Like, I don't know if that's something that money buys. Like, I don't know. The Sohma's relationship with the money, I think, must be interesting. Like, I've thought about it before. I don't have an opinion. Mm-hmm. Like, it's all speculation. I have an opinion that's all speculation, I should say. But like, yeah, his father has a relationship with him, but I do think it's like stuff based. It's not contact based.
Yeah.
It's like he can only see him at the office. He can't, like it's it's
makes him Momiji just wanting that kind of affection, and also that he's been able to get away with stuff like that because he's so small and seems young.
Yeah, he does. Yes, she's like carrying him as a bunny.
Like I don't think it's malicious on his end. I think he's just aware that he can do that wwithout getting like, I don't know, slapped.
I like how I don't know. I like how Kyo calls him lover boy though. It was funny too. Kyo called him out on it right away. But then he's like, you probably hug Tohru all the time because she's so cute. He's like, what? So uncomfortable with that idea. It's like, it's interesting to see in a different light, with deeper speculation. But yeah, I think you're right. He's finally found someone that he can get that kind of attention from.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like he has a very close relationship with people in the family other than Hatori. Like, he doesn't have a close relationship with like Kagura, or I mean, probably not with Rin, but I guess he kind of has a relationship with like Haru. They all get closer though in the series later. It seems.
Yeah, he's like one of the ones that live on the inside, and a lot of them don't anymore.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, does Haru live on the inside? He probably does. I forget exactly.
I think he probably does. I think Yuki and Kyo don't. Most of the adult characters don't, except for Kureno, and nobody sees Kureno.
Yeah, he's mysterious.
Yeah.
I don't know about Kagura's family. I don't think they live on the inside. I think they still live together outside.
And she's like going to college or something too.
Yeah, later she is.
So even if her family lives on the inside, she doesn't spend that much time there.
And then Kazuma lives outside, of course. I think Hiro and Kisa. Well, I don't know. Momiji says they live inside. Maybe they all have separate houses inside.
Yeah, I think they probably live inside.
Other than Shigure, Yuki, and Kyo.
I think Hiro, Kisa, and Haru do.
Oh, Ritsu doesn't, obviously, because Ritsu lives with his parents. Ayame obviously doesn't. I think they live above the shop. Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny how Miji's like, everybody lives there except for Kyo. It's like, none of them live there. Only a couple of them live there. The ones who are not old enough to escape.
Yeah. And he's saying like they start out there.
Yeah.
Except for Kyo. Kyo wasn't allowed to.
Was never invited.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's all the spoilery stuff that I can say now at this point. We will, of course, get more. Yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, thank you all for listening. Like I said earlier, we really appreciate all your feedback. It's been wonderful, and we're finally getting we're getting, the stats are all growing, which is really nice. Not that that's the only thing that matters to me, but it's just nice to like see it happening, which is cool. So more and more people are finding out about the podcast, and that's nice. I'm happy about that. So next time we're reading chapters 11 and 12, so we'll be finishing volume 2. You can find us at all the places: staytogetherpodcast.com, staytogetherpodcast on Tumblr. You can email us, and thank you again for all your support and for spreading the word. This is really, it's fun to get to like dig into this series and talk about it every week.
We're enjoying it. We're glad you are too.
Yes. Okay. All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.